Okay.
If you want to be a React developer, these
The fuck?
in this video, I show you all the TypeScript things that you need to know as a React developer. So right now you can see I have a simple button component and it's using the JSX extension. So if you're ready for this, let's convert this into TSX. I'm going to say this button now needs to start using TypeScript. You can see when I do that, it immediately changes this icon here. And I press enter, and now we have enabled TypeScript in this file. So let's start off with the most common things you want to do in TypeScript. Let's say we have some kind of variable. I can just write a variable like I'm always doing in JavaScript. But now if you hover this variable, you can see that there is some type connected to this. And we have not specified this type ourselves. We could do that. We can say this URL is going to be of type string. You use the colon and then the type. We could also say number, and then you're going to get red squiggly line because now we're trying to assign a string to a variable that we just annotated as a number. So it should be a string, but you don't have to do this because TypeScript is smart enough to infer from what you're assigning to that variable what the type is going to be. It sees that you're trying to assign a string to this variable, so it will automatically infer this variable to be of type string. So we don't need to specify that. Now, what's the benefit of having that type? Well, now later, if I try to assign some other value to it that's a different type, I'm going to get a warning, a red squiggly line from TypeScript. I'm trying to assign a number now to a variable that's supposed to be of type string. So TypeScript is helping us out here. It's telling us this is probably not what you want to do. Besides variables, we also often want to type functions. Let's say We have some function here, convert currency, and we'll take two arguments, let's say an amount, and then also the currency that we want to convert that amount into. And then here in the function body, we would have the actual implementation. Now in the function body, typically we don't want to type anything, but we do want to type the function parameters. If you don't type them, actually we're going to get red squiggly lines here. We're going to get a warning from TypeScript because it can't infer anything here, and we haven't specified it ourselves. So by default, it's going to be of type any, which is not what we want. Any means anything goes. We can do whatever we want with it. It basically defeats the purpose of using TypeScript in the first place if you're using any. We do want to type this as specifically as we can. So the amount is going to be of type number, let's say, and the currency can be a string, USD, EUR for euro. So then I can call that function convert currency with, for example, the number 100 and then a string. If I now make a mistake here, if I now type in a string as the first argument, you can see TypeScript warn says, hey, you're trying to pass a string here, but it's expecting a number type, right? So TypeScript is helping us out here. It prevents us from making this mistake. Also, if I try to pass in another number here as the second argument, TypeScript is telling us, no, that's not what you want to do. You want to pass a string here. And then we can also specify the return type. This is usually not necessary, but sometimes you want to do that. So if you want to specify what this function should return, maybe it should return a string, let's say, then if you call that function, you're going to get back a string. I get red squiggly lines now because I'm not returning anything here in the function body because it's just an example. All right, so now let's talk about how you can use this in React. So in React, we have components, and these are actually just functions like we just saw, except you write a name with a capital case, and in the world of React, we call these parameters props. So typically, you're going to get props here. And just like before, we want to type those parameters. We want to type the props, and we don't really want to type the return values. So with React components, typically the only thing you want to type are the props. Now, in the past, people often did the following to type components. So if you had some component function, and then to type it, people would use : react.fc. Then in here, you could specify the type of the component props. This looks a bit complicated, but this is how it was done mostly in the past. You will still see this sometimes, but there are some issues with this fc, and therefore it has gotten out of fashion. And it was also only possible to type this if you wrote your component function like this, so as an arrow function. You can still do that, of course, nothing wrong with it. Personally, I prefer this traditional function syntax for a component. And let's say that our function is going to receive some props. So I have added the button to our page. Here I'm using the component. And now let's say I want to be able to pass, let's say, the background color. I want to be able to set the background color when I use this component, right? Maybe I want to be able to set it to red. So I should be able to pass in this background color prop. But if I do that now, I get a warning from TypeScript because TypeScript is telling us you're not accepting any props. So now we need to actually accept the props. So we have props, and that's just an object that holds all the props. So if we want to get the background color from there, we can do props.background color, right? And then we can use that background color here in the class name to change the background color, let's say. But let's focus on TypeScript in this video. So now we have props, but we haven't typed this. So to type this, we can use colon, and now it's not going to be string or number because props is an object. To type an object, we can just use curly braces, and then we can say in there's going to be a property background color, and that one is going to be of type string. So if I do this, this is now properly typed. The props is an object, and in there we just have background color as a string. If I now try to pass a number, let's say number 5, we get an issue from TypeScript. Right? TypeScript is helping us out. You have to pass a string here. Now, typically, you don't write your React components like this. Typically, you destructure this. So here you can destructure it like this. So instead of doing props.background color, you can just write props and then just destructure it from props like that, or just immediately here in the parameter list, immediately destructure it here. And that's actually more common. So instead of writing props, you can actually already just immediately write that destructuring in the parameter list like this. So this is a more typical syntax that you're going to see in React components. So the props here, it's still an object, but we are immediately destructuring it here. And therefore, we should still describe this as an object. Now let's say we want to pass a font size as well. So what we want to be able to do is say the font size should be some number, let's say. Maybe font size should be 30. And we get red squiggly lines because we are not accepting a prop called font size here. So here now we need to accept a prop called font size, and we are immediately going to destructure that here, but we also need to specify this to TypeScript. We're going to tell TypeScript, hey, we expect a font size, and that's going to be of type number. And the benefit of this is now when I try to pass something like 40 pixels, let's say, which is a pretty common mistake that you could make here. TypeScript is going to tell us, hey, don't do this. You should pass a number here. And so you can already see TypeScript is helping us out here. It's preventing us from making mistakes. So we have the type string, type number, and the third common type primitive is Boolean. So let's say we also have some Boolean. We want to be able to specify whether this button should be a pill shape or not. So we could say pill shape should be true, let's say. So now we need to accept a pill shape here. So we'll say we're going to destructure that pill shape from the props, and then we're going to specify it here for TypeScript. We're going to say this is going to be a Boolean, true or false. Now you can see the syntax here is quite ugly. It looks like we're sort of repeating ourselves. So we have curly braces here with all these props, and then we sort of have the same here. It looks like the same thing. So it's bloating up our component here quite a bit, especially if you have many props. So instead of writing it inline like this, maybe we should extract this into a separate type. We're going to create a separate type. So in TypeScript, we have type, and we can call that, let's say, button props. I like to use the name of the component and then just add props. And we can say, well, this props is going to be an object with all this stuff here, all these properties. So we can just paste this here, and now we can use this name. Instead of writing it inline, we can just specify this name here. You can see now it's much cleaner. It works the exact same. So the benefits are TypeScript helps us prevent mistakes, but it goes beyond that. Let's say we don't know the properties that we can pass here. I'm using the button and I want to see the options essentially. So I can press Control Space here, and TypeScript is telling us these are the properties that this button can accept. We have background color of type string, we have font size of type number, and we have this pill shape of type Boolean. So I get this very handy IntelliSense as well. When I remove these now, by the way, we see a red squiggly line. So if we look at this, we can see there's some problem here. So we are not passing anything here, and that's a problem because the way that we've done it now is that we have made these mandatory. So if I add 2 of them back, we still get this red squiggly line because we are still missing one, which is pill shape. We don't have pill shape here, but the way that we've done it now is that these are all mandatory. So if we miss one, we're going to get a warning. I can make them optional by having this question mark here. So now if I go back, you can see the red squiggly.
Props in component. We have to specify. Type hinting. Type hinting is such an amazing feature, sir. अरे क्या spelling होती है? That the prop, we have to specify the type of the prop that the component is receiving. Project बना लूँ. folder. I prefer to use Copilot instead of IDE suggestions. The IDE suggestions are kinda useless. It just provides some basic ass shit. So Copilot is much better to use. It's much helpful. Yes, no. Yes, no. I do not have Copilot installed on this machine, but in my laptop that I used to work before, Copilot is so helpful. I like to use Copilot.
Line is
Props for that. Extracting typing props. Right. Mm, say simple loud page.tsx. Yeah. Export default function button. Return return a button. This is a simple testing route. Huh? Component. undefined. Destructuring in the arguments. Destructuring in the argument. Even after doing this, we still have to provide type using object an object type
Curly braces. If you have many, we have type, and we can call that, let's say,
type null button props equal to एक object होगा, background color होगा string और font size होगा number, font size load 10, button props font size Okay.
Button props. I like to use the name of the component and then just add props. And we can say, well, this props, so it's going to be an object with all this stuff here, all these properties. So we can just paste this here. And now we can use this name. Instead of writing it inline, we can just specify this name here. You can see now it's much cleaner. It works the exact same. So the benefits are TypeScript helps us prevent mistakes, but it goes beyond that. Let's say we don't know the properties that we can pass here. I'm using the button and I want to see the options essentially. So I can press Control Space here. And TypeScript is telling us these are the properties.
Control space.
Properties that this button can accept. We have background color of type string, we have font size of type number, and we have display shape of type boolean. So I get this very handy IntelliSense as well. When I remove these now, by the way, we see a red squiggly line. So if we look at this, we can see there's some problem here. So we are not passing anything here, and that's a problem because the way that we've done it now is that we have made these mandatory. So if I add two of them back, we still get this red squiggly line because we are still missing one, which is pill shape. We don't have pill shape here, but the way that we've done it now is that these are all mandatory. So if we miss one, we're gonna get a warning. I can make them optional by having this question mark here. So now if I go back, you can see the red squiggly line is gone because the pill shape now is optional. Another
Argument. क्या हो रहा है? Pill shape. Net यार net. Pill shaped expect करेंगे. होगा boolean. SC होता है ना boolean. Should be yes sir. Oh, pill shape true. Button props. Pill shaped. Pill shaped. True. Okay. Pill shaped आ गया. We do not provide specified number of arguments. TS will give an error to make सही है.
benefit of TypeScript is that let's say I want to use some method here on the background color variable. This is a string. So if I do this, do uppercase, this works without problem. But if I try to do the same thing with font size, which is of type number, I get a warning here because to uppercase is a method that doesn't exist on type number. TypeScript helps us out with using these methods as well. If we don't type this, so if I just remove this font size is going to be of type any by default. And sometimes you will also see people make that explicit. So they'll say this font size is going to be of type any. So any means anything goes. So when I do this now, suddenly I don't get red squiggly line here. So now I could be passing a number here and I'm trying to do .to uppercase. But this would cause an error. It could cause our application to crash. It could cause a lot of bugs in our code. And that's the problem with the any type. Any means anything goes. You can do whatever you want. But then why are you using TypeScript?
It is advised to advised to not use type any as it it makes the whole point of TypeScript useless.
In the first place. And so we do want to type these things as specifically as we can. So here when I type it as number again, you can see we get a warning so we can fix it. So let me remove that. We are now typing the parameters of this component. We also need to type the return value of this component. So it's returning this button here. This is something called a JSX element, this button here. We don't have to type this ourselves. So if I remove this and just hover button, you can see it's already inferred that we are returning this JSX element. So TypeScript can infer a lot. You just have to follow the red squiggly lines. Let's talk a little bit more about the other types that we have in TypeScript. Instead of accepting any string for the back for returning this button, so let me remove that. We are now typing the parameters of this component. We also need to type the return value. Again, you can want, but then why are you using TypeScript? This, so if a warning. The way we see a red squiggly line. So if we look at this, we can see there's some problem here. So we are not passing anything here, and that's a problem because the way that we've done it now is that we have made these mandatory. So if I add 2 of them back, we still get this red squiggly line because we are still missing one. Takes, but we can just specify it's going to be an object with all this stuff here, all these properties. So we can just paste this here, and now we can use this name instead of writing it inline. We can just specify this name here. You can see now it's much cleaner that we can pass here. Can accept. We have when I and that's a problem because the way that we've done it now is that we have made these mandatory. So if I go back here on the back font size, which is of type number, I get a warning here. Say this. I could be passing a number here, and I'm trying to do .to uppercase, but this would cause an error. It could cause our application to crash. It could cause a lot of bugs in our code. And that's the problem with the any type. Any means anything goes. You can do whatever you want, but then why are you using TypeScript in the first place? And so we do want to type these things as specifically as we can. So here when I type it as number again, you can see we get a warning so we can fix it. So let me remove that. We are now typing the parameters of this component. We also need to type the return value of this component. So it's returning this button here. This is something called a JSX element, this button here. We don't have to type this ourselves. So if I remove this and just hover button, you can see it's already inferred that we are returning this JSX element. So TypeScript can infer a lot. You just have to follow the red squiggly lines. Let's talk a little bit more about the other types that we have in TypeScript. This ourselves. So if I remove this and just hover button, you can see it's already inferred that we are returning this JSX element. So TypeScript can infer a lot. You just have to follow the red squiggly lines. Let's talk a little bit more about the other types that we have in TypeScript. Instead of accepting any string for the background color, maybe we can be more specific than that. Maybe we only want to allow the string red or the string blue or the string green. So you use this pipe symbol, and this entire thing is called a union type. And it's possible that we want to use that for other properties as well. For example, we may also have a text color prop, and maybe that one needs to accept the same strings. Now we are duplicating ourselves. So what we can do is we can extract this out into its own type. So we can have another type here, and we can simply call that colors, and that's going to be the union type. Now I named this colors, the plural, but typically it's actually better to leave this as the singular name. So the color is going to be either red, blue, or green, and then we can specify color here, right? So you can extract new types like that and just combine them like this. Now if I want to make a change here, maybe add another color or other colors, I only have to change it in one place. Now because I added text color here and I didn't make it optional, so now we're going to get red squiggly lines here because I'm not passing text color. So let's say I make text color the string purple. Now we get rid of the red squiggly lines. All right, so what about arrays? Maybe we want to accept a padding prop. And with padding, you have multiple sides, right? So you have top, right, bottom, left. So maybe this can be some kind of array. So what we can do is something like this. So it shouldn't be just a
Specify the type color. Okay. left and right arm. Type color red.
Purple. Now we get rid of the red squiggly lines. All right, so what about array here? Because I'm not passing text, change it in one place.
Text color Judas purple. Text color type purple is not assigned harm. Okay. Now if we try to assign anything other than the specified dog. Text color, border color. If more than one prop, if more than one prop share the same type, we can extract it even further. This whole prop object is of type this. ठीक है. Give them their own
case. Now, because I added text color here and I didn't make it optional, so now we're going to get red squiggly lines here because I'm not passing text color. So let's say I make text color the string purple. Now we get rid of the red squiggly lines. All right, so what about arrays? Maybe we want to accept a padding prop. And with padding, you have multiple sides, right? So you have top, right, bottom, left. So maybe this can be some kind of array. So what we can do is something like this. So it shouldn't be just a number, it should be an array of numbers. You can just tack on these square brackets, and that means it should be an array of this type. I can do the same thing here, and now it's going to be an array of booleans. I can even do it with my own custom type, right? Now it's going to be an array of these colors. And for padding now, I need to pass it in. So how does that look like? Well, for padding, now I need to pass an array here. So it's going to be square brackets, and it should all be numbers, right? So if I try to do something like 5 pixels, 10 pixels, TypeScript is warning me, hey, this shouldn't be in this format, it should be a number, right? Type string is not assignable to type number. So it should be 5, 10, 20, 50. Now the problem here is I can add even more. I have not restricted the length. So there's another type, it's a bit more rare. It's called a tuple. So instead of writing it like this, you actually want to write it in the array. So if you just specify number, number, number like this, you get a so-called tuple, which is basically just a more specific array. Right?
H2 type array. If we want to have an array of something, we could use this means that there should be a array of numbers okay. If you want to have an array of something, we could use this और अब मैं अगर इसमें प्रोवाइड नहीं करूँगा कहाँ है कौन सा टाइप था पैडिंग ओके पैडिंग 10 20 30 property border color is missing, make it optional. Okay, padding number. Now if we want to specify more inside the array, like the values and their types, how many values should be in the array, we could use number string color, right? आप इसमें एक नंबर होना चाहिए, एक स्ट्रिंग होनी चाहिए 20 और एक कलर होना चाहिए मतलब ब्लैक रेड an array with the specified children inside.
The length. So there's another type, it's a bit more rare. It's called a tuple. So instead of writing
This type is called tuple.
it like this, you actually want to write it in the array. So if you just specify number like this, you get a so-called tuple, which is basically just a more specific array. Right? So tuple is not something that you heard about before as a normal JavaScript developer, but in the world of TypeScript, it basically just means an array, but a little bit more specific than that. So basically, you specify how many there should be and in what order, what specific types there should be. So here we just have 4 numbers. So now if I try to add more than 4, I get a warning from TypeScript, so I can fix the problem. Right? So I just have to remove these. Now I have 4 elements in the array, and now this works as well. Of course, I should also accept it here in my actual parameter list. Right? So now we add a text color as well as padding. All right, so I'm using Tailwind here, but let's say that we want to use just plain styles. We of course also have the style attribute, and here you can pass an object. So I can have another curly braces here, and here we can set background color to the background color that we pass.
Yo.
To the text color, font size. You know, we can deal with the padding like this.
The fuck? The
Use just plain styles. We of course also have the style attribute, and here you can pass an object. So I can have another curly braces here, and here we can set background color to the background color that we pass, color to the text color, font size. You know, we can deal with the padding like this. Actually, Copilot's helping me out here. Right?
What the fuck did I just hear? Huh? What the fuck? ये क्या था? कुछ क्रोम में कुछ खुला है क्या? डिस्कॉर्ड में कोई इसमें हो गया है? हाँ.
To the background color, I have to color that we pass, color to that text color, font size. You know, we can deal with the padding like this. Actually, Copilot's helping me out here, right? So we can process that array of numbers into an acceptable.
Bro, what the fuck? मुझे लगा कुछ. Break one. I just. Oh, बच गया. Judas. Oh.
format here, and we can have many more properties to deal with all sorts of CSS properties that we can add. But that's a lot of work. So instead of doing all of these CSS properties individually, how about we will just have one style object, and then instead of having all of this individually, we're just going to use that style prop here. So we want to be able to accept an object now. So let's remove this. I'm just going to remove all of this. So button props, we now are going to have this style, and this style is going to be an object. So to describe an object, we have curly braces, and then we could have background color, font size, etc., text color, and I could specify this object like this. And then here, when we use that object, let me remove all of this. Now we need to pass one object here for the style prop. So we have JSX syntax, JSX curly braces, and then we have the actual object that we want to pass. That's going to be background color, font size, and let's say text color. And this is how you type an object. Actually, the props themselves are also an object. So that's also why we have curly braces here. Now, of course, we can have hundreds of these properties, and it would be very cumbersome to specify all of them individually like this. So we also get some help from React. So we also have some types that we get with React here out of the box. Instead of specifying our own object, we can just use one of the types that we get from React here. So we can say react.css properties, right? So now we're not specifying our own object. React is now specifying the object for us, right? So just like we had our own type for color, right? So we had our own color type. We also get some types here when you work with React, just to help us out. So now we can pass any CSS property that we want. And text color is actually not a CSS property. It's actually just called color in CSS. And then we can pass padding, for example, border radius, and we can pass border color. And let's say I make a mistake here, I pass a number, right? So it needs to be some string. That's how you can deal with styles efficiently. So this is describing style. Right? So style is an object. And sometimes when you work with objects, you're going to see something else as well. So let me remove all of this. Let's say we just want to have one prop for border radius. That's a border.
हाँ हाँ लग जाएगा ठीक है लगा दूंगा लगा दूंगा हम्म type property of color are incompatible. Type string is not a thing. क्यों? कलर तो स्ट्रिंग ही होगा और क्या होगा कलर तो वो तो मैं जो भी डाल दूँ what is we have to ये ना चल जाएगा type is not assignable to type color slash undefined अरे ये type की वजह से हो गया है color specified कर दो इसे specified वही color specified specified hmm. string type border radius number color string is not assignable to type properties string number comma string and object क्यों 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 चैट जीपीटी से पूछें क्या दिक्कत है से पूछते हैं the fuck is the difference between string primitive type wrapper object or primitive what is the difference between string and string in TypeScript string test here's an example to show the differences string is a JavaScript string type which you could use to create new string हाँ nobody does this as in JavaScript literal are considered better so nice to we are creating a string object string type okay note string and string are different types the string type is a string is a JavaScript object and the string type is a normal string भी नहीं चल रहा. Type of border radius are incompatible. Type number is not assignable. ये नंबर होगा अब. वाह भाई, इसने यूज करा था. लोअर केस यूज करता हूँ. सब में लोअर केस डालो. लोअर केस. ये जावा स्क्रिप्ट ऑब्जेक्ट है. अब चल जाएगा राइट. अरे फालतू है, टाइम वेस्ट हो गया. CSS object, CSS style object as type. um, we can simply use this to specify our own types for the CSS object.
color, font size, and let's say text color. And this is how you type an object. Actually, the props themselves are also an object. So that's also why we have curly braces here. Now, of course, we can have hundreds of these properties, and it would be very cumbersome to specify all of them individually like this. So we also get some help from React. So we also have some types that we get with React here out of the box. Instead of specifying our own object, we can just use one of the types that we get from React here. So we can say react.csm. Just like we had our own type for color, actually we had our own color type, we also get some types here when we work with React, just to help us out. Now we can pass any CSS property that we want. And text color is actually not a CSS property. It's actually just like color in CSS. And then we can pass padding, for example, border radius, and we can pass border color. And let's say I make a mistake here, I pass a number. We got a problem because the CSS properties will specify that you need to pass a string here, not a number. It needs to be some string. That's how you can do with styles efficiently. So this is describing style. So style is an object, and sometimes when you work with objects, you're going to see something else as well. So let me move on with this. Let's say we just want to have one prop with border radius. So border radius means this curved corner, right? And it could be top left, bottom right, bottom left. So basically you have four possible values. So what we want to be able to pass is something like this, a border radius, and maybe this should be an object. And maybe we want to have, let's say, a key being top left. That's where we start, and that should be some number, let's say 5. And then we have top right, should also be some number, and then maybe bottom right, it should maybe be a little bit more, and then we have bottom left. So this is an object that we're passing here. It has a string as key, and has number and 5. How would we type something like this? When I say to about put here automatically removes the quotation marks here, but these are still strings for the keys. So how do we accept this? So now we're going to have a border radius object here. How do we type that? Well, we have border radius, and now you could say something like, well, we're going to have all of those properties. Top left is going to be a number, top right is a number. But now we are only specifying the value for top left. We are not specifying specifically what top left itself should be. And so sometimes what you're going to see is something like this. You're going to see records, and then you specify the type of the keys and the values. So for the keys, you're going to have string, and for the values, you're going to have numbers. These are going to be strings, these are going to be numbers. Sometimes what we also want to do is we want to pass a function. For example, type of function here, a function as a type group prop. Well, you just have this syntax, so basically like an arrow function. So here you specify the parameters. Well, this function doesn't have any parameters, and then you have this fat arrow, and then you specify what this function returns. This function right now doesn't return
Okay.
function here, a function as a type group prop. Well, you just have this syntax, so basically like an arrow function.
Arrow
So here you
function.
specify the parameters. Well, this function doesn't have any parameters, and then you have this fat arrow, and then you specify what this function returns.
Okay. So we specified like a arrow function. Hello, Aryan. Uh, hmm. Specifying the types for both key and value of an object. Good morning, Neoxy. How you doing? What's up? What's up? Key and value. Specifying the type for key and value of an object. मैं तो record कुछ करा था ना. Record.
And then you specify the type of the keys.
अगर for example, अरे कहाँ है? हाँ. अगर हम मान लो ऐसा करते हैं भाई. इन सबको बना देते हैं हम ऑप्शनल. ये इधर से ले लेते हैं. अगर मैं कौन-सा लॉग हटाऊँ. स्टाइल यूज़ कर रहे हैं, यूज़ नहीं कर रहे, कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. हाँ, क्लीन अप कर दें. ये देने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. कुछ स्टाइल्स दे रहे हैं, ऑप्शनल कर दिया है. आप इन्हें ले लेते हैं. बॉर्डर मान लो प्रोडक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट दे देते हैं. प्रोडक्ट दे देते हैं जिसमें एक होगा ऑब्जेक्ट होगा प्रोडक्ट 1 और नाम उसका प्रोडक्ट नेम प्रोडक्ट है. इधर बटन प्रॉप में जाएंगे. प्रोडक्ट्स के लिए रिकॉर्ड यूज़ करेंगे. रिकॉर्ड में होगा हमारा स्ट्रिंग कॉमा स्ट्रिंग स्ट्रिंग कॉमा स्ट्रिंग. मतलब इसकी की भी स्ट्रिंग है, इसकी वो भी स्ट्रिंग है. एक सेकंड. This specifies that the key and the value pairing for the object must be string and string. Key object pairing हो गया.
So for the keys, you're going to have string, and for the values, you're going to have numbers. Right? These are going to be strings, these are going to be numbers. Sometimes what we also want to do is we want to pass a
Okay.
when you click on the button. We have that function for that specified, not in the button itself, but here. And we just want to pass that to the button. So maybe we have some on-click, and that can just be some, on-click handler. I will just treat this as an empty function for now. Now we're passing a prop here called on-click. Let's go to our button here and now make sure that we accept this. So now we're going to get something called on-click. Here we want to accept on-click.
ऐसा करते हैं, ये हटा देते हैं अभी के लिए. सब यूज़ नहीं हो रहा है. कोई भी यूज़ नहीं हो रहा है. तो एक चीज़ पास करते हैं. एक पेन नोट बना लूँ. Types of function passed. Type of functions. अरे function pass sprops. Type of function pass sprops. इसमें मान लो handle click पास कर रहे हैं. इधर एक फंक्शन होगा handle स्पेसिफाई करेगा एक इसमें मान लो नंबर 1 नंबर 2 const handle click equal to कैरो फंक्शन बनाते हैं console log handle click was called और इधर इसके टाइप्स आएंगे मान लो नंबर 1 का टाइप हो गया नंबर 2 का टाइप हो गया नंबर can find did you mean number is declared here और इसमें हम ले लेते हैं handle click और handle click होगा इसमें एक फंक्शन जाएगा एरो फंक्शन ये रिटर्न करेगा यहाँ पे एक नंबर 1 आएगा जो एक नंबर होगा और नंबर 2 आएगा जो भी एक नंबर होगा क्या दिक्कत है type void is not assignable to type this is the expected answer cannot find number 1 number is declared here तो हम स्पेसिफाई किधर करें टाइप ही नहीं समझ में आ रहा देखते हैं पहले
Now it has one parameter, a type string. It's going to have a parameter called test. It's going to be a type string, and this will return a number. So instead of void, we return a number. All right, so let me also remove this. One of the last things I want to show you here for the props is the following. So right now we have
अच्छा तो इधर हम कॉल बैक नहीं कर रहे हैं यार मैंने कहीं ना कहीं यूज़ करा था कॉल बैक पास कर लेगा रिएक्ट में था कहीं रिएक्ट अरे जावा स्क्रिप्ट है यार डिफरेंस बिटवीन नहीं कॉल बैक फंक्शन पास करने का parent child component customer component styling with classes bottom maintainer रिएक्ट यार कहाँ हूँ data driven react की कॉल बैक फंक्शन पास करने से होता क्या है कि हम उसमें आर्ग्यूमेंट पास कर सकते हैं कि मुझे ये देना है डायरेक्टली अगर हम प्रॉप्स की तरह पास कर भी रहे हैं तो मेरे हिसाब से आर्ग्यूमेंट देने में मतलब नहीं होता सही बात है ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी रिटर्न नथिंग हो रहा है नंबर 1 हो गया इधर void रिटर्न कर दो void हो गया सही चल रहा है अगर मैं कॉल बैक फंक्शन में भी करके देखूँ तो क्या होगा क्या void तो सही कर दिया मैंने. नंबर 1 मान लो 10,20 कर दिया. मान लो मैंने ऑन क्लिक पे तो चला दिया हैंडल क्लिक. टाइप नंबर 1 void. अच्छा दे देते हैं 1020. अब चल जाएगा. अब नहीं दिया कुछ एरर. If you need interactivity, consider converting the file into a client. हाँ नहीं कोई जरूरत नहीं. हाँ. Event handler cannot be passed. अच्छा. बटन में इवेंट. ओके. यूज क्लाइंट. क्या हो गया? तो क्लाइंट है. अरे यार. Functions cannot be passed directly to client component unless you explicitly expose it by marking it. अच्छा. Server. क्यों क्यों हो रहा है ऐसा? मैं इसमें ये मेरा सर्वर कंपोनेंट है. इसमें मैं अपना फंक्शन पास कर रहा हूँ हैंडल क्लिक का. चल गया. क्यों? इसमें फंक्शन पास नहीं कर सकता. कॉल बैक बिना क्लाइंट बनाए. passing callback function to a component in server type component. Passing events from client component to server component to help. To understand the principle of passing now a function via props to a client component and handling the response. My server component. You cannot pass data from client component to server component directly because it will be rendered on both the server. That being said, if you try to pass a data from client component to a server component, there is no straight bridge between them. तो मैं तो हाँ जब मैं क्लाइंट स्पेसिफाई कर रहा हूँ चल जाना चाहिए. क्यों नहीं चल रहा है? इसको क्लाइंट इसको होना चाहिए क्लाइंट क्योंकि ये कॉल बैक कर रहा है इसलिए. हो रहा है ये? इंपोर्ट बटन कर लिया, ये रेंडर हो रहा है हमारा। एक क्लिक इवेंट है ये। इवेंट तो क्लाइंट उस कंपोनेंट में कॉल हो रहा है ना, तो ये क्लाइंट क्यों होना चाहिए? ये तो ऑटोमेटिक ही सर्वो क्लाइंट हो जाएगा। ओ, 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 ओ। हम्म। अभी नहीं, नहीं अभी नहीं। हाँ, नहीं मानता वो यार। एसिंक्रोनस सेंस नहीं बनना कोई। What are your plans for the future, just you personally? Interesting question. what are my plans for the future? I would say to explore more on the entrepreneurship side, not only related to, specifically related to coding, because I personally don't think I would love to, you know, do coding my whole life. I just I just am doing this for a specific hobby or a skill that can help me further down the line to grow my startup or anything or any business I start in the near future. And personally, I'm more interested in entrepreneurship than this whole technical stuff. So yeah, my future goal is to be a successful entrepreneur, what in whatever field it may be. It doesn't matter for me. What about you? What do you plan to do in your future? क्यों होना चाहिए async? क्यों? Server actions must be asynchronous. To clarify, sample function does not include any asynchronous, or you do not foresee any opportunity on any the error might be arising from the. Why? Async करके क्या हो जाएगा यार? चल रहा है अब वो पास नहीं हो रहा है. Off. There was an internet connection issue. Sorry. Sorry, there was an internet issue from my side. If you need interactive consider. तो यार ये तो क्लाइंट है ही. ले कर दिया क्लाइंट. Style handle click function cannot be passed down directly to client component until you explicitly expose it by marking it with use server. हाँ. Okay. Functions that cannot be passed directly down and you explicitly expose it with what the fuck is this here? Explain kar. There are message suggests that handle click which is being passed from a server component to a client component is causing issues because it cannot be directly passed. In next 13 and above, with the new app directory component function server, हाँ ये तो बता दे. Separation help optimize strategies. Server component can fetch data. हाँ 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 हाँ. बे होशियार. मुझे inside नहीं करना handle click. क्या दिक्कत हो रही है? स्ट्रक्चर समझो. सर्वर कंपोनेंट है. ये सर्वर कंपोनेंट है. इसमें एक बटन कॉल हो रहा है जिसमें हैंडल क्लिक पास हो रहा है. इसमें हैंडल क्लिक डिफाइंड है और ये बटन हैंडल क्लिक कॉल कर रहा है जो एक फंक्शन है void एलिमेंट जो रिटर्न करता है. तो ये दिक्कत हो रही है कि ये फंक्शन इधर है, हम पास कर रहे हैं. कैन वी पास फंक्शंस टू क्लाइंट कंपोनेंट यूजिंग. कैन वी पास डाउन फंक्शंस टू क्लाइंट component in server component. Functions cannot be passed directly to client component unless you explicitly expose it by marking it with use server. If I mark the receiving the fuck. According to the documentation, you can pass a server component to a client component using the children prop. हाँ. Server component to a client component. तो ये server component की तरह काम कर रहा है इधर. तो मेरा simple function component थोड़ी है, function है. यार नोड कॉल हो रहा है. यार क्या कर रहा हूँ मैं? दिक्कत है. तो मेरा ये है सैम्पल राउट है. हाँ. ऐसे देते हैं. ऐसे द सर्वर कंपोनेंट. एस है सर्वर कंपोनेंट. एस के अंदर एक फंक्शन है हैंडल क्लिक का. हैंडल क्लिक का टाइप. अब हैंडल के कोई कंपोनेंट तो है नहीं, सीधे सर्वर वो है फंक्शन. तो एक और हैंडल इसके अंदर बटन पास हो रहा है which is a client component because it handles click ना. ऑन क्लिक हैंडलर क्लाइंट कंपोनेंट में यूज़ होता है. तो हैंडल क्लिक हमने यूज़ करा तो सर्वर कंपोनेंट के अंदर क्लाइंट कंपोनेंट रेंडर हो रहा है. सीधी सी बात है, सिंपल सी चीज़ है. तो हो जाना चाहिए यार, क्यों नहीं चल रहा. passing down a function to a client component. Passing a function from server to client. हाँ. Whenever possible. I have a page with form. This is an API. Home page और client component. होम में ऑन सबमिट हैंडल सबमिट ले रहा है और ये ऑन सबमिट उधर से ले रहा है. यही सेम चीज़ है ना. सबमिट लॉजिक पूरा दे दिया उसने हैंडल सबमिट के लिए. सही है. cannot pass a function from a server component to a client component. Though it's true that data fetching recommended do, it is still not to be run in. Passing function that is written in server side file to a client component to fetch data on the server, do it. So, but basically what you need to do is create a handle submit inside a client component and call another function. The fuck is this dog? Acha. My little brother is also a coder. He's expert in all this. So now he's working in an MNC in Mumbai. That's very good. And I'm also a coder. Why did you stop coding? Wow. What else are you doing right now? Or do you want to, continue coding or anything like that? एक ने बोला था कि यूज सर्वर चल गया है. वाह भाई. सूख गया. अब मैंने इसमें Yo. What? God damn भाई मैं डर गया. Okay. Break 3. Break 2, sorry. Break 2. Start. Text. Break 2. क्या कर रहा था यार? मैं चेक कर रहा था ना. Handle click was called. Handle click was called. Post sample route. समझ गया मैं कि हम एक सर्वर से फंक्शन